Customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DiJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you're a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you. This episode of the Customer Service Revolution podcast is sponsored by Fin.
Fin is the #1 AI agent for customer service. Fin is the highest performing agent on the market with a 65% average resolution rate. Fin is built to handle complex, multi-step queries like returns, exchanges, and disputes, delivering high-quality, personalized answers just like your best human agent. Fin is trusted by over 5,000 customer service leaders and top AI companies, including Anthropic and Synthesia. Fin works on any help desk with no migration needed, which means you don't have to overhaul your current system to get the best AI agent for customer service. Try today with our 90-day money-back guarantee. If you're not 100% satisfied with Fin, get up to $1 million back. If you are ready to transform your customer experience, find out how at Fin.ai/csrevolution.
Hello, revolutionaries. Welcome back to another episode of the Customer Service Revolution podcast. I am here with John DiJulius. How are you, John?
I am fantastic. How are you, Denise?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much. Did you have we're recording this shortly after the 4th of July weekend. How was
Unbelievable. This is the time to be in Cleveland. It's gorgeous. I'm actually leaving for Jamaica tomorrow, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm disappointed to be leaving Cleveland.
It would be nice to be able to time these things, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But I'm also blessed that I get to go to Jamaica and work with great companies.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, John, I want to talk about something you wrote recently about Southwest Airlines. Have they turned into just another U.S. airline?
Yeah. So it appears. I mean, for more than 4 decades, they were the outlier of U.S. airline industry, right? Provided great customer service in an industry where it appeared that the competitors were fighting to be the worst. Southwest consistently is ranked #1 airline in domestic customer satisfaction for decades. They were the most profitable airline in the U.S. When you combine the rest together. And then whenever we do workshops and we do a lot of times we'll do an icebreaker, brands you can't live without, always you'll hear Apple, Amazon, Target, Southwest. So they're always mentioned, but yeah, they're changing some things. And what made them unique was their energy, right? They're always so nice. They made their flights fun. They do hilarious greetings where they take the mundane safety announcement and, you're laughing. And they had open seatings, which some like, free check bags, no rescheduling or cancellation fees. One of the things that always shocked me about Southwest, it should, look this up, but the moment we park at the gate, it's got to be less than 2 minutes before that door's open. And everyone else I fly is got to be over 10 minutes before that door opens up. Like that always impressed me that we're physically moving within 2 minutes of being parked at the gate.
What do you think that is? Is that ramp agents? Is that on the what makes them
back in the day? Yeah, back in the day, I don't know if this is still true. Everyone was allowed. Somehow they negotiated with their union, and they're very union friendly, that it didn't just have to be the ramp people, that pilots and flight attendants and everyone was part of onboarding and something I wrote about a long time ago, when early on in Southwest days, they were last in turnaround times. I mean, this is when they first started. less in turnaround times of their equipment, which obviously affected their on-time departure and on-time arrivals. So if I'm leading Southwest, and this is probably in the 70s, I would study the number one airline that's doing it right. Southwest didn't do that. They studied NASCAR pit crews, and it led to, besides all the other things we mentioned, their customer service and all that, them being the most profitable airline and having the best KPI, on-time departure, on-time arrivals. Yeah. But that's supposedly changing.
So they've been profitable for years, and then it changed.
47 consecutive years, 1973 to 2019.
For an airline, isn't it?
Say that again?
I said that's amazing for an airline, isn't it?
Yeah.
How many others can say that?
I don't think any. And their original strategy was simple. Happy employees lead to happy passengers, which lead to happy shareholders. But supposedly that's fading. Have you flown them recently?
I have, not long ago, and it was still open seating.
Yeah. I know that's starting in the next few months on, their crawl, walking, and running. I haven't necessarily noticed a drop-off. They don't seem as over-the-top friendly, but they don't seem rude. But I'm more noticing what they're doing in the news. Now, what's made them different is fading. They're adopting assigned seating, which I'm not against. Shrinking space between rows, phasing out free bags, which I know that's a big thing that people are freaking. Even their pricing, once a significant draw, now blends in with the rest. Why? Putting profits in front of everything else. And there was an article in in Inc. magazine, what leaders can learn from Southwest Airlines' slow fade from greatness to sameness. Southwest mechanic said, shareholders come first, not employees. It's all about the money. Once with Southwest's uniqueness is slipping away. So in addition, Southwest has experienced major operational failures, including a widespread cancellation and steep fees driven in part by underinvestment in maintaining and modernizing its aging fleet, which is short-term profits take priority. Essential long-term improvements are often neglected, with passengers bearing the brunt. As a result, Southwest stock, LUV, fell from $66.99 in 2018 to $31 as of June 25th. So more than half. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, that hurts. So who owns Southwest now?
Southwest. I don't think
there was no change in ownership that created this.
Not that I'm aware of. Now, I'm gonna guess it's been. Let's find out.
I mean, it sounds like a CEO move,
right? But Herb Kelleher died, the founder and the person who made them so unique. I'm trying to see. I want to say in the past 10 years, he died. Oh wow, he died in 2019. Yeah, so wow, that's the last year they were profitable. Yeah,
isn't that interesting?
Yeah, he was a maverick. He was so interesting. I don't know.
Yeah,
have you had any complaints?
That Richard Branson kind of
right
energy, right?
Do you have you still enjoyed flying them? Have you ever enjoyed flying them?
So I think when you think of them as a low cost airline, they were the best for certain. I mean, when you put them up against Frontier, Spirit, they were always fantastic. Sameness, I think, is a good word for it now. I don't know if they're as uncomfortable seat-wise as some of the lesser expensive airlines, but their prices definitely are not less expensive now.
Well, you haven't seen their redesigned planes. That's probably going to shrink that seating, I'm assuming. I don't know.
Are their prices going to be reflective of that? Because right now, I don't see them as a bargain. I do see them as having some better, like flying out of Cleveland especially, right? We don't have we're not a big hub for all the airlines as some are. So to get direct flights is always a big deal to me. And Southwest does have directs to some of the places I want to go. I'll pay a little more for that.
Yeah.
But I do notice.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I even flew them to Jamaica. I mean, they're very convenient. What was really cool, I don't know if this is still the case. They only had one plane, which the brilliance of that was all their pilots only had to, be trained on one plane. All their parts, one plane, their mechanics, the simplicity of that was really, really cool. I don't know if they've changed from that.
Yeah, I think that's smart. Yeah, good question. I wonder, have they changed from that? Are you able to pull that up there?
I'm looking.
But I do
So I don't,
notice that there is a difference, I think, in staffing flight attendants, the personalities, maybe. It's not that they're rude by any means, but it's not that same energy. And if that does indeed come from the top, well,
yeah, they still only fly 737, all Boeings. Yeah, I would say, I could, honestly, I've never rarely booked a flight based on price, especially because I'm not paying for it most of the time. So I look for most convenient. So Southwest was never something I like gravitate. It was just if they fell into my lap they were the most convenient, direct, but I always enjoyed them because they had that energy, and I never understood why it was so hard to get other airline people to enjoy their job. It'll be interesting, but it is a good case study because I wrote about this, and we probably talked about this a couple months ago, but you rarely see a company built on customer experience fail. Every, company, and not that they don't fail from time to time, but the great companies built on customer service usually are long lasting, and they outperform everyone else. So you think about the Disneys, not that they haven't had struggles, Amazon, all those great companies, and the list just goes on. But Starbucks and Southwest both got away from what made them great the past 4 or 5 years, and so they're a case study in its own. Of now they're struggling, and are they gonna be able to recover?
this sounds like a good research case study for you to work on.
Yeah, I've been following it. It's gonna take some time on both.
Well, one of the most significant contributors to customer service crisis is management's paranoia that customers are out to take advantage of them. I don't know that I've seen that so much outwardly anyhow with Southwest, but we know that this leads to a significant amount of time that companies spend on creating and enforcing policy rather than creating positive customer experiences. Definitely see that in the lower budget airlines with the policies they have that take advantage of the customers versus customers taking advantage of the airline. Why do so many companies' agreements and policies sound so angry?
Well, back to the airline. I don't know if you saw that they had Spirit and maybe Frontier, a U.S. Senate hearing, and blasting them for they incentivize monetarily their gate agents to catch your bags oversized, and then they get a commission. So, yeah, I like to say to your question, build your company's customer experience as if no customers have bad intention. And I think we build it the opposite and create all these policies and warnings and all these things that send off such a negative. Everything speaks, right? Not only what our employees say, literally speaks, but whether you go to someone's website or outside, inside, signage, everything's saying something about your experience. And the three most common, what we talk about negative cues is there's verbal, literally, signage, and people's actions. And those all can be, negative cues that you have to do an audit of your business and see if you have any negative cues.
Okay, I think this is a great topic, negative cues. Where do people start looking for negative cues? If you're a brick and mortar, it's going to be different than if you're someone whose customer experience is a user experience on the website.
Yeah, so they all have them. So let's just first break the three down. Verbal, negative cues. It's the language we use. Every word we use matters. Some examples I have is years ago I checked in for a doctor's appointment, and the receptionist says, "We need to verify your information." I was like, oh my God, I swear to God, I'm me. I felt like they thought I was using my cousin Vinny's insurance card or something. But it was kind of insulting, right? And if you change one word, verify, to confirm or update, that's not insulting to me. And actually, in this one instance that I remember, I would be appreciative if they confirmed or updated my information, because I remember at that time, it had been several years since I was at this doctor's office. I had new insurance and I had moved. Had they not done that, it would have been a debacle with the insurance not covering it because the information. So if she would have said, you need to update or confirm, thank you so much, but verify in a hair salon or a doctor's office or anything that has appointments where people are on your property. When you go up to someone and say your 330 is here or your next client is here, but what's your existing customer think? That you're hurrying. So you have code words instead of saying, Denise, your 4 o'clock's here. In the salon, we used to say, or I don't know if they still do, Denise, do you want more water? Do you want ice for your water? And that was our code that they're piling up out front, right? Pick up the pace. But your client doesn't think that they've lost you mentally, and that you're just moving faster. And then another one that 32 years ago, we did something that was unheard of. We would call our clients the day before and remind you of your 3 o'clock tomorrow, right? That was crazy customer service that at that time, no one did. Now it's all done digitally and text and all those great things. But a percentage of our guests at the salon would be offended because they know their schedule. You're insulting them by reminding them. So we changed remind to confirm, and we never got a complaint again. So every word we use matters. So you got to look at, what terms we use, what employees say, things like that. So just like, there's another really good one, a verbal one that, if someone's late, I don't know if you remember this, if this is around back when you were there. It's one thing to accommodate them, right? And we want to. You got stuck in traffic, things happen. But if you walk in 15, 20 minutes late for your 3 o'clock appointment, and we just say, hi, Denise, great to see you, and, we start your service, that's kind of training you, the customer, that you can walk in whenever you want, and we don't want that to happen. So some verbiage we use is when you walk in, we say, oh my God, Denise, you're okay. I was worried about you, and I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to provide you with the full service. I still think we can. We might, whatever the solution is. But when we say, I was worried about you and I was worried that we wouldn't be able to do your haircut, pedicure, massage, whatever, it's a polite way of saying you're lucky this time, right?
Yeah, even with, you brought up the text confirmation messages that, everybody sends out now, whether it's a restaurant or a doctor's office, beauty salon, whatever it might be. But even those things, I think, could be updated in a way to sound more fun, more polite.
Yeah.
Instead of just 1 yes, 2 no. If you're as excited as we are about seeing us tomorrow, hit 1. If you've had a change of plans and you'd like us to contact you to reschedule, press 2, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Everything speaks. So those are just some examples of verbals, fully committed versus booked, just little things. But probably close to the biggest one is signage or words. Again, you have to go to your agreements. Yeah.
Before you go to signage, sticking on verbal, I think one of the biggest things with verbal is just the tone of your voice, not just what you say, but how you say it. We always say you can tell when someone has a smile in their voice. So I know some of our clients have put mirrors up next to monitors to remind people to smile. When you sound rushed when you answer the phone, that is, I think, a verbal cue, negative.
Yeah, you're so right on the tone, because like Chick-fil-A and the Ritz-Carlton will tell you they made a mistake 30 years ago when they only gave their employees one option instead of no problem, my pleasure. But after the 50th time this hour, it didn't sound like my pleasure. So making sure that, they have more than just one option. It's not overly scripted. Certainly my pleasure. Absolutely. I'd be happy to, but making sure that it's not like my pleasure, right? Right words, wrong.
Say it like you mean it.
If you're happy, tell your face.
Let's take a quick break here, John, to introduce our listeners to Fin, the #1 AI agent for customer service. We're talking about the highest performing AI agent on the market with a 65% average resolution rate, offering higher quality answers and resolving even the most complex customer queries. Fin is built to handle complex, multi-step queries like returns, exchanges, and disputes with high-quality, personalized answers just like your best human agent. Fin outperforms every competitor. That's why it's used by over 5,000 customer service leaders. Top AI companies, including Anthropic and Synthesia, trust Fin's system for continuous improvement. And because Fin works with any help desk, no migration needed, you don't have to overhaul your current system to get the best AI agent for customer service. Try Fin today with their 90-day money-back guarantee. If you're not 100% satisfied with Fin, get up to $1 million back. Get the #1 AI agent today. Learn more at Fin.ai/csrevolution. That's Fin.ai/csrevolution. Don't worry if you didn't get that written down. You can find the link to Fin.ai in our show notes. Now back to the show.
Okay, so what's the best way for companies to audit verbal negative cues?
Well, so it's not only verbal, even though that's the examples I've given, it's written, it's anything. And so obviously what our most common answers, responses are, but B2B, in any business that has a website, which is every business, what's put on there? I mean, negative cues to me is just a great example or a barometer of the service aptitude of the owner. Because if there's a ton of negative cues everywhere, he or she is so paranoid. My favorite quote to this is, don't punish 98% of your customers for what you're afraid 2% will get. And sadly, one of the highest selling signs on Amazon, I read this once, is the sign that you could buy, we reserve the right to sell to, I forget the rest of it. But if you think about it, if you walk into most places, there's a sign at the coat room, we're not responsible for lost or stolen garments. There's a sign at the desk where you're paying. There will be a $30 fee if you bounce a check. And, listen, all those, I feel like when someone has bounced a check, it was, they felt horrible. They understood that there's bank fees. I just don't think we have to insult every customer for what one or two are going to, happen to. So, look at your websites. Look at all the warnings, how hard it is to do business. Contracts. I remember back when you were in the salons, you helped us. We had a lot of stuff about kids aren't allowed at the salon, if they aren't getting an appointment. And on its surface, that sounds really like we hate kids. But I remember you went through and talked about how it was in the best interest of the kid because there's flat irons and there's curling irons and there's scissors, and you don't want your kid running around while you're getting a service for 2-3 hours. Besides that, it's not the best experience for everyone else that's coming to a salon and spa for an escape. So a lot of times, especially when we go over the visual side, a percentage of the time, I don't even think it's 50, but it is a percentage of time, you still need what you're telling them, but there's a different way to say it. Like we don't want kids there, right? Attended or if they're, because you didn't get a babysitter, you wanted to come in for a 3-hour highlight or massage, you think you could just leave the kids up front. But there's better ways of saying it, like you're doing them a service, not, punishing them.
What other examples do you have?
So signage is the most often. Now, this is more if you're brick and mortar, but I literally have pictures that in my presentations I show. They're pictures that people have sent me or I've physically taken. The most common ones we'll see in restaurants is employees must wash hands before returning to work. So now legally, I think a lot of states, they have to. But they don't have to say it that way. Like I have a picture, we care about our facilities. That's why we have 100% commitment to employees, sanitation, after they use the restroom. But I have one picture of a restroom of a fast food restaurant that I stopped at, wanted to order, but had to go to the bathroom first. And in the picture, there's 4 different signs in their restroom that says employees must wash hands before returning to work. There was one above the door handle. There's one above the paper dispenser. There's one above the soap dispenser. And then there's one on the mirror above the faucet. I was like, oh my God. Right. Like they must have an epidemic and I didn't stay in order. Right. So there's must have receipt to use restroom. Here's a picture of, this was at like a retail store on the cash register where the customer sees. If you're on your cell phone while at the counter, will not wait on you. Okay. And I understand where this stems from. Someone was, holding up the line, talking. But I have another picture of a sign from Sudsy Dry Cleaner in South Beach. Their sign says, don't hang up. And just write on this pad, are you picking up or dropping off your name? And we know your call is important to you, right? So it's just an opposite approach. I have a picture of a sign that was on, someone sent this to me, of a doctor's office window. Receptionist is closed with this sign that says, there's only one person working here. Please have patience. Do not stand in front or knock on the window. If no one is present, I'm either assisting another patient or handling specimens.
That sounds like a bit of TMI.
Right. My favorite all-time example is, it was called the Wine Loft, and it was in Fort Worth, Texas. And back in my jogging days, I went out jogging in the morning. It was this beautiful outside lifestyle mall. Is that what they're called? Mm-hmm. Is that, where you have all the fancy things? And I'm just running down it early in the morning, and I come to the Wine Loft and a gorgeous, gorgeous wine bar. And I took a picture of their door, and it has 9 or 11 no's on it. So it says the Wine Loft dress code on the door that no athletic pants, shirts, or shoes, no hats, no Bluetooth devices, no baggy clothes, no excessive jewelry, no t-shirts, no muscle shirts, no ripped, torn, or frayed clothing. So those were all the no's. Then the next line says business casual or business attire is suggested. That's all they needed. I went back 8 months, a year later, jogged the same place, and they were out of business. So what are they focusing on? Go ahead.
I remember going somewhere one time with some people, and when you walked in, the host said to one of the men in the group, I'm sorry, but you can't come in here with jeans on. And he said, should I take them off here?
Yeah. And again, you have dress code, whatever. An example of, we had this in the spa, and I saw this at Travel Centers of America truck repair. So very similar examples. When we were working with Travel Centers, they had a sign. So you'd wait in their lobby for your truck to be repaired. But there was a sign on the door to the bay where they were working on your truck that said no drivers allowed past this point. And drivers would get annoyed and they'd get suspicious. Why? Why aren't I allowed to, my truck? And what are you doing? Are you poking holes in my radiator so I have to come back tomorrow? And we get suspicious. And I'm really bad at this. If you tell me I can't, I'm going to. So for instance, I've never turned my cell phone off on a plane. I just know that's not a real thing. So if you're ever on a plane and we crash, it's my fault, right? In the salon, in our early days, in our salon, we have a salon section of where people get haircuts and their nails done, and it's louder and more energy and music. And then we have a spa side that usually is separated, and that's quiet. And people are whispering, and you know all about that. Well, we used to have a sign, no cell phones allowed past this point. And that was horrible, right? So instead of, while we don't want cell phones past that point, we can't tell people that. So the way we changed it was, thank you for keeping this a cell phone free serenity experience. And so I'm more apt, and people are more apt to cooperate. So what they changed the Travel Centers repair from no drivers allowed past this point. It was actually an insurance regulation. If a driver went into the bay and slipped and fall on the greasy floor, they weren't going to cover his injuries. So they changed that sign from no drivers allowed past this point to, if you should need something from your truck, please ask one of us and we'll get it or escort you to it. So it's not a punishment. Now you make it realize that it's for your best interest, kind of like no kids at the salon unattended or without a service. So there's a lot of things like that we could just go on, but you have to do an audit. And then there's the third one. There's verbal written words. There's signage. Just stand out front of your business and see all the things on your doors and all that. And then the things when you walk in at front desk. And then there's actions that employees can do. And an employee on break smoking a cigarette where customers can see them, right? We have to teach employees what on stage and off stage is. And if you allow for that, great, but they got to be somewhere where no one can see or hear them what is on stage and off stage. So, things like that when they're off and they come in to do, their sister's hair and they dress like they're off, right? That's a negative cue. The rest of the customers there don't know they're off. They just see unprofessionalism. So, you look at what negative cues you can eliminate or change and make them more positive. Look on your website, verbiage, terminology, signage, what on stage and off stage, agreements, employees' actions, code words, terminology that the company understands but doesn't make any sense to the customer. So things like that.
Where does dress code fall in this?
That's a negative cue. Or potentially can be. So yeah, it's part of that. Anything that can be seen or heard is an experience on the phone. And with the work from home option, you got to be careful of what is going on with dogs barking and babies crying and kids running in and out. Even if you're not on Zoom, but you're just answering calls from your home, those are all negative cues of experiences. Sometimes I don't know when someone's talking to me, I'm sorry, this is making no sense. I'm sorry, I wasn't talking to you. And it's like, why are you having multiple conversations when you're on the phone with me as a customer? So negative cues, that's the first place we start when we work with companies. Discovery, we'll go to, if they have locations, and we'll just look outside. It could be dirty. It could be clutter. It could be, one of my biggest pet peeves is if there's two doors, I always go to the left door and open that. Because half the time it's locked. And it's whenever I go to any of our salons, I do that every time. And rarely is it locked, but it drives me crazy when someone forgets to unlock both doors. Because I get mad when I pull a door and I'm like, my shoulder hurts from it not opening. So little things like that. But we'll look at the window and working with restaurants, through like a Starbucks or a Chick-fil-A or any type of, visually, there's so many literal signs and advertisements and that you can't see the menu or you can't see the person taking your order. All that sight lines is negative cues. Clean up the clutter. My favorite thing
out of date.
Say that?
Out of date. Sometimes you see advertisements that are out of date, upcoming event and it's already passed.
Mother's Day. Yeah. One of my favorite things that we did in the salons is have removed the front desk. So there's no front desk, which is anti-salonish, right? You walk in and there's no front desk because that front desk is just clutter.
So what does that look like for people who are not familiar, with a salon entrance like that?
Any retail.
How do you do it? How do you make that work? Because I can see people right away going, oh yeah, but we have our check-in computer. We have our, checkout. We have this, that, all the different things that they feel they need at that point.
So like Southwest studied NASCAR pit crews, we studied Apple, one of the greatest retailers ever. And there is no checkout line at Apple. You don't get your product and then go to a section of the thing. That person can check you out right there where you're standing. And there's hidden cash registers if they're paying in cash, hidden printers for receipts, whatever that may look like. So that's what we did because, and this isn't salon specific. I think this should be a doctor's office. I think this should be everywhere in retail. That desk is usually big and it's just a collector of all the things we're talking about, signage, and make sure they know we have a BOGO and, the clutter and the printer and the register and all those ugly things. The other thing that it can do is if you sit or stand behind there, you're making customers come to you. And if you're sitting, it's stealing your energy. So when you don't have a front desk and someone on an iPad, they come to you. You don't go to this, you don't walk in. And the biggest compliment we've ever gotten in the salons early on was when someone walked in and never been to our salon and walked out and looked at the sign, because it didn't look like a hair salon when they walked in. There's more room for retail. There's more room for demonstrations. There's more room for revenue producing things. And whoever, cashier, whatever you want to call the person, goes to you and isn't sitting and making you come to them. And you get creative with where you're going to put the printer. Today, really, how many people want print receipts versus if they want a receipt, we'll email it to you. There's so many things. So how many people are paying with cash today? We have it if we need it, but it doesn't need to take prime real estate.
I like that. It would be nice even think about high-end retailers, clothing, that kind of thing. If the person assisting you could just check you out right there.
Correct. And something that we've learned to do now in some salons, you can, if they're independent contractors, they're going to check you out. But in traditional salons where they're employees, what we've learned is that when you're wrapping up your haircut, your highlight, your pedicure, the lack of a better word, cashier, we call them guest care, will come to you and can check you out while you're at that station and get your products and do all that. So when you're actually done with your service, you can get the hell out of there and don't have to go wait in line. And while there's, if it's the top of the hour, that means people are coming in and leaving. And so, there's a line of people checking in and check out. Well, you can remove that traffic by going to them before they're done and wrapping up their service, and bringing them out at that station, at that chair, wherever.
Yeah, I would think that, that keeps your lines down and that too. I was just thinking, there's a bakery that I go to in the morning sometimes for coffee or maybe bakery. But when you check out, so there's a person that takes your
bakery person listens to our podcast. Didn't you tell me that? Is that the same one?
No, it's a different
one. You go to
a
lot of bakeries.
I do go to a lot of bakeries. This place has the best sourdough bread, so I get my sourdough bread there. When you check out, you order from one person when you come in, and then you check out. And so they have to communicate to the person checking you out what you ordered. Now, why they can't just ask me, as if I'm going to lie about that loaf of bread that's sitting there and the coffee that's like, you have to wait for that person to communicate. There are little bottlenecks like that I don't think businesses see from the inside, but right. You see as a client or as a customer. So I love when you and Dave go into a business and you can see things with fresh eyes.
Yeah.
Because it changes your perspective. Think of all the stores that you walk by. I walk a lot. And when I walk by stores in the morning and things are closed, it's a great opportunity to see those kinds of things. And I'll walk by and I can't help it. You get jaded when you do this and you talk about this regularly. I look at windows and think they could change this, they could do this, they could do that. Even having flowers out front that aren't watered.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And like I said, this all tells me all I need to know, how many negative cues you have, tells me all I need to know about who's running your business. Everything speaks and everything's a warning and everything's a punishment because you're so paranoid. But on top of that, that's the culture you're going to create. And that's why, when we go back to the earlier example, Spirit Airlines is trying to bust you on your bag is too big and you have to check it and pay. I mean, it's just a culture that employees, when they're around a bunch of negative cues and policy, have to hide behind that policy or they'll get in trouble. And now we're beating up the messenger who says, sorry, or, whatever, you can't wear jeans here, or, whatever the policy is. And then we're taking it out on them and they hate their job. They hate the customers because the customers are all mean and nasty. Well, that's because of, the top, and the top is forcing them to enforce and punish 98% of the customers for what 2% all, and I'm okay with getting taken advantage 2% of the time. Doubt it's even close to that high. But if it is, because what we get back from the 98% that can't believe, we trusted them and we made it right.
Yeah. So getting employees to do this is another, I think, could be obstacle. Training is really important because they may not know to look for those things. So how do you train employees on the negative cues?
Well, so obviously it starts with senior leadership and all your department heads to audit it constantly and educate them. We want no negative cues. We want nothing that goes out there that can be interpreted. I'm sure you remember this. I don't know, 15 years ago, I was doing someone a favor locally. I was presenting at a something for them, no charge, right? Whatever. But then we got a fully paid event asking for that date. So I mentioned to someone on our team to just ask that, tell them, because it was long enough. Can we just move the freebie that we were doing to another day? And do you remember what they emailed them?
I don't remember. Why don't I not remember this?
They emailed, Dear Sarah, October 15th, when John's supposed to do that free presentation, he's now been booked for, by a paying client. So we're going to need to reschedule it. And I was so mad that,
That's
she knows
sweet.
she knows it's free. You didn't have to make her feel, just ask her, is it possible that we move the date? But to me, those are negative cues. It's our email responses. It's me making you wrong in the email, making sure you're like, what happened to our 2:00 Zoom call? Well, Denise, if you see below, I copied and you told you it was this day and making you wrong first before I say, are you available now or whatever? All those. I mean, there's so many negative cues that come in so many ways. So I guess back to your question, it really needs to be done for the top. But once the top tells employees why, and we don't want to hide behind policy and we want you to have the autonomy to use your best judgment and then let us know if you see any negative cues that slips through the cracks. But, that's all part of that service aptitude. But service aptitude comes from the top. And most of these things, signage is coming from the top.
So I think it's hard to audit someone for something they don't realize they're fully responsible for. And I don't think it's innate for most people to, especially younger people, to see something on the floor and necessarily pick it up. Like little things like that others might catch or that you might see if you're a customer, but you get so used to seeing when you're an employee that black mark on the wall that's been there since I got here. Those little things.
So leadership has to audit it, but it's not getting employees in trouble because usually employees are doing what they were trained and told. And, the previous person who trained me told me, we can't do this. We can't allow this. We can't allow this. So if you're auditing it, you just say, oh, Denise, and that's one of our zero risk workshop exercises is what are the areas you get asked the most that you can't say yes to? And let's say you come up with a dozen of them. Are any of those dozens that we can't say, can we say yes? Is it possible? Are we just saying no because someone told you we couldn't 5 years ago? You're going to find 10% that, why are we saying no? We could actually say yes to that. 5 years ago, we couldn't, but today we can't. But the other 90, 80% that we still maybe can't say yes to, we find ways not saying no. No is a negative cue. No is a negative trigger. No is Latin that I'm lazy and I'm not going to help you figure this out. So that's part of all this. There's a lot to negative cues.
You just brought up zero risk. And for our listeners, if you are not currently a member of the Experience Revolution, it's a program I would highly recommend you joining. The Experience Revolution membership gets you access to workshops, one of them being the zero risk workshop, where you can actually build these different systems that John is talking about. Negative cues, is that coming up, John? Or did negative cues happen already?
We did zero risk in June. So it usually goes with zero risk. I can't remember if we did it, but you can get it with your membership. You get pass, right?
Yeah. So once you have a membership for the Experience Revolution, you get access to all of the past workshops that have happened and all of the upcoming ones. Each annual membership offers 4 live stream workshops. So you can join and ask questions to John and Dave, our VP of Consulting, live during these workshops. So I just want to make sure I bring that up.
Yeah, I believe the future ones, the fall and the winter live stream workshops of 2025 is on recruiting and maybe onboarding new employees.
Right. So to register, you can visit the DiJuliusGroup.com and under training, look for Experience Revolution membership. And there will also be links to it in the show notes.
All right.
So auditing, John, do you recommend that people have a checklist that they go through? What does that look like?
Yeah. So yeah, it's just scanning constantly the website because there's so many hands that get put into the website, and you might, from your department run and tell the IT person, oh, we need this on there. Oh, we got to update this and take this off. All of a sudden it's a hodgepodge of different people's tones and, service aptitude. So there has to be your chief experience officer who's ever losing sleep at night. This has to be one of their core tenets, that they're constantly auditing websites, agreements. And again, a lot of stuff in agreements have to be in there, but it's the way we word them, right? And that it's to protect both parties or, in your best interest. Signage, God, there should be no signage in salons or in businesses. But it's all those things. It's your email communications. What are we putting there? What are we saying? What's your signature look like? All those things. Your text confirmation, digital communication.
So verbal signage.
Verbal terminology. That's verbal is also written, right? Actual signage that people can see, and then employee actions. And on top of what they could say is they're, visually can see them, that they're on stage, all those.
So this is a lot to cover. It's a lot to unpack, negative cues, and gives our listeners a lot of homework. If you haven't done an audit recently, even if you've done one in the past, we recommend that you go back and take a look at these kinds of things regularly. John, before we close out today, let's talk a little bit about living an extraordinary life.
All right. So I like to end every episode we can with living an extraordinary life, so countless others do. So the example I want to share with you today is for centuries, humans tried to find a way to break the 4-minute mile. Legend has it that men were chased by lions to see if that helped them run faster. Unfortunately, that did not end too well for the men. By the early 90s, medical experts had determined the human body was simply not capable of eclipsing a 4-minute mile pace. It wasn't just dangerous, it was impossible. The human body had reached its limits. But on May 6, 1854, Roger Bannister made history and shocked the world when he broke the 4-minute barrier. The impossible was made possible. Could this feat ever happen again? It had never happened before that. Within the next 12 months, 24 more runners broke the 4-minute mile. Let me say that again. Within the next 12 months, the next year, 24 more runners broke the 4-minute mile mark. So what happened in that following 12 months? Did the human anatomy change? No. The belief system of what people thought possible changed. This applies to every aspect of our lives. What belief system needs to be changed in your world? Did you see? Someone told me this. I didn't see it.
The woman?
A woman? Yeah.
Yeah, she came very close.
Like a few seconds.
Yeah. 4 minutes, 7 seconds.
Wow.
Oh, but that was...
This was
She
July.
attempted to break the 4-minute mile twice in June of 2025 and in February of 2025.
All right, so it is
She's going to
4
do it.
minutes.
She'll do it.
All right. What's your fastest time, Denise?
For a mile?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I'm not that fast a runner. I mean,
God.
like an 8-minute mile would be a great one for me.
I'm so slow. I'm double digits.
Are you really?
Yeah.
My legs
I
are
don't
longer
run.
than yours.
I don't run that often. I don't like running. I thinking of a 5K one time. I was at 7 something, which was flying for me. I can't come close to that now.
Yeah. For me, a 5K, as long as I'm under 30 minutes, I'm like, that's good. But like to get near 20 minutes is just, I guess I don't have a strong enough desire to train to think it's what it takes. Mind over matter.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, John, for another great episode of the Customer Service Revolution podcast. And we'll see you all next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Becoming the brand customers can't live without is a team effort. Want to get everyone on board and bought into becoming a world-class brand? Consider bringing John in live or virtually for a keynote or workshop. Email Claudia at thedijuliusgroup.com for more information.